Hey there, and welcome back to Revealed Truth. Today we have part 2 of our previous story. I won't keep you longer than necessary, so let's begin. I went into my office and opened my safe. Let me explain. I have classified documents from time to time, so I have a DoD-approved safe in my office. I also keep quite a bit of cash, several handguns, and 3 burn phones in the safe. I removed a burn phone that is labeled on a piece of tape Fred phone, and called my old friend from my army days. I have used him many times to help me with my consulting work. Fred here, he said. This is Juliet India Mike, Jim. How the hell are you? I asked. Hey. Good to hear from you, Captain, he said. What's up? He asked. You remember what we did to Sergeant Lynch when he was screwing all the deployed guys' wives? I asked. Oh yeah. Good times. You need another one? He asked. Yes, there's a guy screwing my wife, and I need you to have a talk with him, I explained. Whoa. I didn't expect to hear that. Guess the guy doesn't know who he is dealing with. You want same as before. How serious a talk do you want? Fred asked. I don't want a tango down, but a serious talk with long-lasting results, I said. I will email you the details on the perf. Send away. When? Fred asked. Thursday night, I said. I have a key to his place. I will leave it at our usual drop. Did you want me to tell him why? Fred asked. No, just inform him that he has been ducking married women, and that is not acceptable, I said. Orders received, Captain. I will contact another fellow beret for some help. I take it that you don't want to be involved? Fred asked. I will be at a fancy dinner with my wife followed by a Broadway play later on, I said. Understood. Fred standing by, he said and hung up. I unlocked my briefcase and took out Anne's phone. There were several missed calls from Tony but no voicemail. I blocked his phone number. I checked her texts and found nothing. Next I checked Anne's Facebook on my desktop computer. Tony had left her a message. Got your key. You sure you want to do this? I hope you will show up Thursdays so we can discuss. I miss you and want you. Of course he wants Anne, she is beautiful and damned good in bed. However, I want her too, so he must lose. I drove to the drop location and left Tony's key for Fred. Later that evening, Anne made us a nice dinner and there was very little talking. I did as you asked. The guest bed is ready, Anne said. You will be sleeping in the guest bedroom until further notice, I replied. After dinner Anne watched some TV and I worked in my office. Later, when Anne was upstairs getting ready for bed, I checked her Facebook on the computer in my office. There was a message from Tony. Someone broke into my condo and destroyed everything. They flooded the place too. I will get a new mattress hoping you will be here there. I need you. Since I was logged into my wife's Facebook, I sent him a return message that read. My husband found out about us. I told you it was over. I will not be there Thursday. Then I unfriended him and blocked him because I don't want my wife communicating with him anymore. I grabbed one of my burn phones from the safe and put it into my pocket. When I got upstairs, my wife was brushing her teeth in our bathroom. When she left for the guest bedroom, I hid the burn phone under some towels in the linen closet. As I went into my bedroom, Anne was standing in the doorway to the hall. I am sorry that we cannot make love tonight. I could really use some of your loving tonight, she said. In my mind I still see Tony putting his duck in your kitty. I don't know if I will ever be able to make love with you, I responded. Anne quietly went to the guest bedroom and closed the door. I set my watch alarm for 2 a.m. and went to sleep. When my watch woke me, I silenced it right away because I didn't want to wake Anne. I got out of bed quietly and went into her bathroom. I took out the burner phone and I called Tony. When he answered sleepily, all I said was a-hole and hung up. I hid the phone again and went back to bed. I was depriving Tony of good sleep. I learned that trick while I was in the army. Loss of sleep will make him edgy and not thinking clearly. I want him to know that someone is after him. All part of the plan. Wednesday. Wednesday was a fairly normal day for us. Anne did some laundry and cooked some meals for us. I worked in my office all day. I decided to give Anne back her cell phone, but not before I put a tracer app on it. The app would tell my cell phone exactly where Anne was. When I handed it to her, I told her not to call Tony or she might be living in a motel. In the afternoon I received a call on my Fred burn phone. Hello Fred, I said. We did some recon last night. Should be a piece of cake. No cameras anywhere. His car still has flat tires, so we probably cannot use it Thursday. A lady in a Ford Escort came to his door last night about 7 p.m. They talked outside and we used the parabolic mic to get some of it. Sounded like he made a date for tonight with her and said something about a motel. Guess he has a stable, Fred said. Good 411 that I can use tonight. Thanks, I said and hung up. Later, Anne served us a nice dinner. Actually, she does that every night. She is an excellent chef and knows what I like to eat. All Anne talked about was her recipes and cooking for us. I didn't say much. After she did the dishes, I told her that I wanted her to come with me for a ride in the car. I drove us over to Tony's condo, and I parked across the street from his condo. Why are we here? Are you trying to rub my nose in it? Anne asked with anger in her voice. Well, I had not thought about it in that way, but if it works, then sure. I brought you here to witness something. Just watch Tony's place, I said. You aren't going to do anything, are you? Anne asked. I ignored her. We waited for about 10 minutes when a Ford Escort drove up in front of Tony's condo. A lady got out and walked up to his door and knocked. Tony came out and kissed the lady, then they walked hand in hand to her car and got in. That is Sherry from work, Anne said. I started my car and followed them. They went to a cheap restaurant and motel across town called the Midway Motel and Restaurant. I have eaten there and the food is okay, but the motel side of the business is known to rent their rooms by the hour. Tony got out and went into the office. I got out my cell phone and turned on the camera app. He came out and held up 2 key cards and got into the lady's car. They drove down to room number 110 and parked in front of it. Tony used one of the cards and opened the door. She got out of her car and they both went inside. I snapped photos of all of it. And it seems that your lover has other interests besides you. See why we have to have STD tests done? I asked. That rat. Sherry is married, Anne said angrily. I wonder if he was doing this while he was also ducking you. It is a good thing that you decided not to move in with Tony. Besides, he doesn't have a bed anymore, he has to use a motel for his romantic efforts, I said and laughed. I drove us back home. When we entered our house, Anne slammed the door to the garage and stomped up the stairs. I could tell that she was very angry, but I wasn't certain with whom. I let her get ready for bed in our bathroom and I stayed in my office. I opened my safe and took out one of the burned phones, and I called Tony's cell phone. It rang and rang until he finally answered it. What? He said angrily. Mr. Martin, this is the Aspen Condo Homeowners Association. We noticed that you have an abandoned car in front of your place that belongs to you. We do not permit abandoned cars, so we have asked the police to put a 72 watch on your car. If you don't fix it and move it within 72 hours, it will be towed. Good evening, Mr. Martin, I said and hung up. I took out my Fred phone and called him. Fred here, he said. I want the drop-off to be at Midway Motel and Restaurant like before, I said. Message received, Fred said and hung up. When I came upstairs to her bathroom, Anne was just finishing her nightly routine. I could tell that she was still angry, but at whom? I hope that you are happy now. You have shoved Tony and his hoe in my face, she said. Anne, I am your best friend in the world. I just showed you that your lover is cheating on you. I guess he doesn't have feelings for you as much as you have for him. You are just another lady in his stable. Don't unalive the messenger. Your witchy mood is going to keep you sleeping in the guest room. The bed in the master bedroom is for me and my loving wife who used to live here. I am hopeful for her return, I said. Thursday. My watch alarm woke me at 1 a.m. I checked on Anne and she was sound asleep in the guest bedroom. I went into the bathroom and retrieved my burned phone from the towel stack. I dialed Tony's number. It rang for some time and he finally answered out of breath. Ah, they were still ducking. You know that Sherry is married, a-hole, I said and hung up. At breakfast I could tell that Anne had been crying. I didn't say anything to her. She served us breakfast and afterwards she sat at the table drinking her coffee and looking at me. I am sorry for the way I acted last night, she said softly. I was not certain whom you were angry with, I said. Both of you, she said. Anne, I have made some plans for you and me for this evening. But first I want you to assure me that your affair is over because last night it felt like you still had some deep feelings for Tony, I said. I have already told you that it is over. So what are your plans? Something else to do with Tony again? She said angrily. Stop your witching, Anne. I am tired of it. I have dinner reservations at the Brown Palace downtown, and then we will go to a Broadway play at the Denver Theater. I thought I would try to take you on a date tonight, I said. Oh, I am, Anne said, but I interrupted her. I am trying to be nice to you, but you keep on aliving the messenger. You are still pissed and witching at me because I showed you that your lover is cheating on you just like he cheated on me. Think about that. A cheater cheating on his female cheater. I was planning on asking you to sleep with me tonight, but your witching has just turned me off. I have had enough of your witching over the last few months, and it will end today. You will move all your stuff into the guest bedroom and guest bathroom. Think of it as one step closer to the front door. You will stay there until you figure out how loyal, faithful wife treats her husband. I cannot cancel the reservations for tonight, so be dressed up and ready at 6 p.m. Now get out of my sight, I said angrily. Anne's face went white, and her eyes were as big as saucers. She ran out of the room crying. I worked in my office all day on some reports that were coming due. I didn't see Anne at all, but I heard her moving stuff into the guest bedroom. I did not have reservations for tonight already, so I thought I better set them up. I called the Brown Palace and made dinner reservations for 6:30 p.m., and then I called the Denver PA Theater and bought 2 tickets to the play Aladdin. About 3 p.m., I got a call from Fred on my burn phone. Poker party is set for tonight. You got some place to be tonight? Fred asked. Dinner and a play afterward, I said. Too bad that you can't make the poker party. It should be a lot of fun. Our poker game will be done just before midnight, Fred said and hung up. About 5 p.m. I went upstairs and took a long shower. I shaved again and put on my best suit and tie. I wore some cologne that Anne had bought me. I saw that she was dressed fancy and was putting her face on in the guest bathroom. About 6 p.m. we left for the Brown Palace. I thought Anne looked very nice and I told her so. She really is a beautiful woman, and I can see why Tony wanted her. I thought maybe Anne would apologize for her witching, but she said nothing in the car. We had a very fancy dinner and then walked up the street to the theater. After the play, we stopped at Village Inn for some pie and iced tea. We returned home about 1 a.m. I walked Anne to the guest bedroom door. She reached up and put her arms around my neck and kissed me. I had a wonderful time tonight. Thank you, Anne said. I didn't say anything to her but just stared at her. She hung her head down and said, I am sorry about today. Last night was just such an unexpected surprise, and I handled it all wrong. I am sorry that I misjudged your actions tonight. You really showed me a good time and how much you care for me. I am sorry I was such a witch. I really love you and want to continue to be your wife. Would you like to sleep with me tonight? Anne asked. Good night, Anne. Sleep well, I said and went to the master bedroom and closed the door. Friday. The next morning I woke up with Anne's mouth on my duck. It is a good day when you start off with a BJ, and I had no intention of stopping her. Since I have not had any sex lately, it did not take very long for me to come in her mouth. Anne swallowed all of it. Anne said to me, I wanted to thank you for last night, and for putting up with my witching. I know that I can be difficult sometimes and I am sorry. Then she ran off to fix us a breakfast. Is the old Anne back? After breakfast I went to my office and checked my emails. There was one from the lab that is performing the tests for STDs. I was 100% clean, but Anne had an infection in both her mouth and her kitty, but no STDs. The email said the infection came from a male other than spouse who had urethritis, and had given it to her. The lab suggested that she consult with her family doctor. I printed it out and gave it to Anne. I saw her make an appointment on her cell phone with our family doctor. Later that morning, Anne's secretary at work called her with some news. She said that since Anne and Tony were so close, she thought that Anne should know about Tony Martin. He was found beaten up in the parking lot at the Midway Motel and Restaurant about midnight. She told Anne that he has a concussion from head blows, a broken jaw, several broken ribs, and a badly damaged left knee. There was also damage to his stick and balls. She said that they may have to remove one. She said that the police believed the attack to be a robbery because his wallet and credit cards were missing. She said that his wife was flying in later today, and the architectural firm was paying for her lodging and meals. Anne came into my office and told me word for word the conversation. Did you have anything to do with Tony's injuries? Did you take me out last night just so that you would have an alibi? Anne asked. Why would you say such a thing? I took you out on a date. I wanted to do something nice for you in the hopes that we could start to reconcile. I even planned to take you to bed with me last night. However, your witching yesterday ruined it for sleeping together last night, and here you are witching at me again. When are you going to learn? I want my old Anne back because I hate this version of Anne, I said. Oh honey, I am sorry. I didn't mean anything by it. It just seemed like Tony's injuries were coincidental with you finding out about the affair, Anne said. I could have roughed him up and I would have enjoyed doing it, but I didn't. Instead, I chose to irritate him, so that he was always looking over his shoulder all the time to see who was after him. Now can we get Tony out of our lives? I really don't want to hear his name again, I explained angrily. Honey, I am sorry. I didn't mean anything by it, honest. I made a mistake. I am sorry. Anne started to cry. Anne, you keep getting angry with me. The last 3 months or so you have become a witch most of the time, and I am tired of it. Good wives don't act that way, and they certainly do not limit their husbands to having sex only on Friday nights. Last night I tried to show you that I still love you, and I wanted to do something nice for you, but here you are again witching at me. Consequently, I have decided to take this one step further. We are going to separate for a while, so that you can get your head straightened out. We will both still live here. I will have the master bedroom and bath, and you will live in the guest bedroom and bath. We will eat breakfast together every day, but that will be the limit of our time together. I will eat dinner elsewhere and some nights I may be out late. Don't talk to me unless it is an emergency. You need some time alone to do some deep thinking, and don't be going out in the evenings, because that could get you moved out to a motel. During this time of separation, I too will do some heavy thinking. Do I want to keep you? Will you still be a witch in the future? Are you worth forgiving? I said. Honey, I am sorry. I will do anything to make it right, Anne said, crying. Anne, one last thing, don't go see him in the hospital. His wife is here and it is her job to be with him, not yours. But if you go to see him in the hospital, don't come back home. Trust me, if you go to the hospital I will know it. You will not be able to hide it from me. You would need to come get your things because I will destroy everything of yours. I have been too nice with you, but your witchy attitude has unalived my efforts to reconcile with you just now, I said. Later that afternoon I called Fred on my Fredburn phone. Captain, sir, he said. I hear the poker party was a success, I said. You missed a good time, he said. How much did I lose? I asked. $950 should cover your losses. Can you give it to me in mostly 20s? He asked. I will leave it at our usual drop, I said. I finished printing out some of the photos from my phone of Tony with his date. I wrote 2 letters and printed them out. I folded up each letter and put a couple photos inside the folds. I put each set in an envelope and wrote a name on each. For my next errands, I needed to look like a process server or someone official. I went to my bedroom and I dressed up in a white shirt with dark tie. I selected a tweed suit coat to wear. I took $950 in cash out of my safe and then locked it. I drove up toward Boulder and left the money in our usual drop. Afterwards, I drove to the hospital where Tony was being treated. I put on my colored glasses to complete my attempt to look like an official. I went into the hospital and asked what room Tony was in. When I got to his room, a red-headed lady was sitting in a chair beside the bed. Tony was sleeping and had a lot of tubes and wires hooked to him. His head was all covered with bandages. I put my hand on the red-head's shoulder and then handed her the envelope with Linda written on it. I'm sorry, ma'am, I said and left. She turned and started to say something, but I was gone. She opened the envelope and read the letter. Dear Linda Martin, it is with great sorrow that I tell you that your husband has been ducking married women from his office. He was found lying in the parking lot of the motel where he has been taking them. I suspect that an angry husband has given Tony a message. The police think it was robbery, and it may be best to let them continue to believe that. It will keep his affairs out of the newspapers and TV. You don't have to believe this letter, so I attached photos for you. They were taken at the same motel where Tony was found. If I were in your shoes, I would want someone to tell me. Next I drove to Anne's work and took the other envelope to the receptionist. It was addressed to Lionel Miller, the CEO and founder of the architectural firm. His letter read, Dear Mr. Miller, your new employee, Tony Martin, has been ducking some of the married ladies in your firm. If you have a non-fraternization policy, he is breaking it and you are not enforcing it. Tony will cost you millions of dollars in settlements with the husbands. Is he worth the cost and publicity to your famous firm? The women are not to blame and should not be fired because he may be blackmailing them. He is an expert at seducing married women, and I suspect that this is not the first time. He was found beaten in front of the motel where he takes some of the women. Maybe an angry husband sent him a message. The police believe it was a mugging for his money. To lessen any publicity about your firm, let them continue to believe that. However, you should conduct an investigation quietly inside of your firm. In the future, enforce your non-fraternization policy. One of the photos shows Tony standing in front of the room that he was using Wednesday, and you can see one of your married female employees approaching him to join him inside. I decided to go get a steak for supper at the Texas Roadhouse. After dinner I stayed at the bar nursing several cokes and watched a college football game on the TV. I arrived home at 10:30 p.m. and went straight to my bedroom and slammed the door, so that Anne could hear that I was home and not happy. That next week seemed to go slowly. Anne had gone back to work, but I sensed that there was tension at her office. Everyone knew that she and Tony were an item, and now Tony has been beaten up. I suspect that there was a lot of watercolor talk. To make matters worse, there was an investigation at her work regarding Tony. Anne was called before the HR director and the architectural firm's lawyer twice, and she was worried about keeping her job. The severity of her affair was starting to get to her. Every morning when Anne left for work, she would come to my office door and say goodbye. She had stopped doing that several months ago, probably when she started seeing Tony. I knew where Anne was every moment of the day, thanks to the app on her phone. Once she arrived at work, she stayed there. At the end of the workday, she always left work promptly, and occasionally she would do the grocery shopping on her way home. Once she was home, she did not leave again. Anne tried several times to talk with me, but I just walked away from her. She always started off by saying, "I'm sorry," which got old. On Tuesday evening of that week, 2 police detectives came to her house. They explained to both my wife and I that in their investigation, they discovered that Tony was having sex with some of the women at the architectural firm. They first talked with Anne alone. She later told me that they just wanted confirmation that she was having sexual relations with Tony. She admitted it and told them that I knew about it. Next they asked her where she was Thursday night, and she told them about our date that night. They also asked her if her husband, me, would do anything to get back at Tony. She told them no, that I wasn't like that. When they talked with me alone, they wanted to know where I was that Thursday night. I told them about our date that night. I showed them the bill for dinner and the ticket stubs for the play. They asked me if I knew about the affair, and I said that I had just found out. They wanted to know what I was going to do about it. I explained to them that we were trying to work through it, but divorce was still on the table. They asked me if I had any plans for Tony. I told them that I was seeing a lawyer about suing the architectural firm for millions because of Tony. I assured them that I had no intention of hurting Tony because of the upcoming lawsuit. They asked me if I knew anyone or another husband who wanted to hurt Tony. I told them I didn't know any of the other husbands. We never heard any more from the police. Friday, first week. Today I needed to mess with Tony's mind again. When we were doing difficult interrogations in the military, we used the old good cop versus bad cop technique. The bad interrogator would dress up in Class A uniform with all the bells and whistles to let the guy know that he was in charge, and he explained all the bad things that could happen to the guy if he didn't cooperate. Later, the good interrogator would come in wearing casual camo, and he would treat the guy in a more relaxed manner. He was usually successful in obtaining information. So to deal with Tony, I needed to be the bad cop. I put on my black suit, white shirt and dark tie, and mirrored sunglasses. I went to the safe and put my favorite handgun in the holster on my belt. Yes, I have a concealed permit to carry. It may be childish playing like I am one of the men in black, but my intent was to put an image of fear in Tony's mind. I drove to the hospital where Tony was being treated. I went to his room and closed the door. There was no wife present. Tony was sitting up in bed, and the bandages on his face were gone, and most of the tubes and wires were no longer attached to him. I knew that his jaw was wired and that he could not talk. He looked shocked and upset when he saw me. I am certain that he thought the men in black were coming to get him. "Tony, I know that you cannot talk, so I will not ask any questions," I said, and walked up close to his bed. "I see that you recognize my uniform. The agency that I work for takes care of problems that concern the officials in Washington, D.C. You and I have never met. I am Anne's husband. I know that you know Anne because you both work at the same place, plus you have been ducking her in your condo. I hear that your bed was destroyed. I guess you won't be screwing anyone there very soon. I understand that 2 men gave you a message about ducking other men's wives. I think I would pay attention to their message because the next time could be fatal," I said. I unbuttoned my suit coat and pulled it back to expose my handgun. Tony's eyes were the size of saucers, and he was shaking his head no. "I want you to know that I did not do this to you because Anne and I were out on a date with lots of witnesses. By the way, I wouldn't tell the police about our little talk because the police believe that it was a robbery. I just wanted to see how you were doing. I noticed that your wife is not here with you. Maybe she found out about your affairs," I said. I reached in my coat pocket and drew out the 4 tire valve stems that I had cut off Tony's tires. I dropped them in his lap. "I found these and thought you might want them," I said. Then I leaned close to his ear and said softly so only he could hear me. "I am going to be watching you every day. I will know everything that you do. You have no place to hide. I hear that inside of your condo isn't even safe. If I were you, I would be very careful after you leave this hospital. Those 2 guys might still be looking for you, but I would not know anything about that. Maybe you should move to the West Coast to live. I hear the sunshine and the beaches are nice. Have a good day, asshole," I said. I emphasized my last point by holding my coat back so that he could get another look at my handgun, and then I left his room. I drove past Tony's condo and noticed that his BMW was missing. The car still had flat tires when Tony entered the hospital, and now it is gone. I bet his wife had the tires fixed and that she drove it back to Texas. The second week was very hard on Anne. I could tell that she wasn't eating enough and she was not sleeping well. At breakfast I could see that her eyes were red, and she had dark areas below her eyes. She never smiled anymore. We would eat breakfast every morning, but we did not speak. She would come to my office door and tell me goodbye when she left for work. I don't know what she did when she came home after work because I made certain that I was gone. I would eat dinner at some restaurant and then walk through stores until 8:30 or 9 p.m. I don't drink, so I never went to any bars, and I have no interest in chasing women. Afterward, I would drive home and go directly to my bedroom. Friday, second week. I had received an email from Fred that Tony was being discharged this afternoon about 4 p.m. I put on my men in black clothes and my handgun on my belt again and drove to the hospital. I sat on a bench just outside the main doors. When an Uber car showed up, I assumed that Tony would be coming out, so I walked over to the side of the Uber and watched for Tony. The hospital doors opened automatically, and a nurse was pushing Tony in a wheelchair toward the Uber. I stepped up and opened the rear door of the car for Tony. When he saw me, his body jerked and he turned to the nurse and was trying to say, "No, no, no," with his wired jaw. "Tony, just relax. I will be watching over you every hour of every day," I said, smiling. He walked with a noticeable limp and had difficulty climbing into the back seat. I deliberately pulled my suit coat back so that Tony could see my handgun. As I was closing the door, I said, "You have a nice day." The Uber drove off and the nurse said to me, "He is pretty messed up, so I am glad that you will be looking after him." "Yes, ma'am. You have a good day," I replied. I nodded to her and went to my car. I took off my black suit coat and tie and drove to one of my favorite restaurants. I returned home about 7 p.m. and went straight to my bedroom to read for a while. Monday, third week. My wife called me and told me that 3 of the top people at her firm were going to visit Tony, the firm lawyer, the director of HR, and the VP of operations. She found out later that they made him sign a lot of paperwork and then fired him. The condo belonged to the architectural firm for visiting clients, so they gave Tony 1 week to move out. Weeks 3 and 4 passed and Anne had stopped trying to talk with me. We ate breakfast together and she always told me goodbye when she left for work, but that was all. During the day, we both worked. In the evenings I ate out and returned sometime in the evening. Thursday, 5th week. Since I wouldn't talk to her, Anne hand-wrote a short letter on Thursday and taped it to my bedroom door. It read, "My dear husband, I have tried to talk with you, but you have just shut me out. I am very sorry for the affair and for my actions when I found out that Tony was attacked. I was very wrong in how I handled everything. I have had some time to think about everything. I had told myself that it was just sex with Tony, but I discovered that you cannot duck someone 6 times and not have some feelings for them. I can see that the feelings were only one way, he only wanted me for sex. Although I told you that it was over, I found that I couldn't turn off my feelings like a light switch, but you showing me that Tony was seeing someone else helped me get over him. I am sorry for how I acted about that. I made Tony part of my past just as the men I had sex with before I met you are in the past. I never think about any of them, and Tony is now in the same category. I realize that I have hurt you with this affair. That was something that I did not consider at the time. I admit that I was only thinking about me. I have put Tony in my past and am trying to forget about him, but I know that you cannot put my affair into the past and forget about it. I betrayed you and you have lost your trust and probably your love for me. I made a huge mistake getting involved with Tony. He is very handsome and much younger than I am. When he started paying attention to me, I fell for it. He said nice things about me as a person and how I dressed. He was clearly seducing me and I was too stupid, as you suggested, to see it. However, I will not use that as a defense for my affair. I went along with it and I take full responsibility for it. I realize that you are uncertain about me being your wife anymore, and I do understand why. If the shoe were on the other foot, I would treat you even worse than you have treated me. I don't think I realized how badly I have been treating you. I didn't realize that I was such a witch. I would like for us to set aside a time for us to have a discussion. All I am asking for is a one-time discussion to get everything off both of our chests. A chance to say everything, holding back nothing. Clear the slate. We can talk non-stop for 24 hours if you want, but at least let us have a one-time to talk until we have said everything. If you still want to divorce me afterward, then I will understand and accept it. Whether you divorce me or not, please at least allow me to live with you. I will be the best cook, housekeeper, companion and duck buddy you could ever ask for. I need sex pretty badly and I know that you must be hurting also. I will make my body available to you anytime you want, and you may do anything that you want with me. No strings attached. You don't even have to talk to me. You do not have to sleep with me, but God, I wish you would. I miss holding each other and waking up together. I love you more now than I did the day I married you. I am finding how much I depend upon you and how much I need you in my life. I hate myself for what I have done to you, and I am so lonesome that I just want to die. With all my love, Anne. The first read the letter several times, and I admit the big tough guy inside of me wept tears. I admit that I had not thought much about reconciliation or divorce yet. Actually, I was repressing the thoughts about Anne's affair. I do believe that it was 90% Tony's fault, and by dealing with him, that would solve most of the problem. However, Anne needed to be taught a lesson, and that is why I set up the separation. Anne needed time to think about the affair, and to get over being a witch, which I believe was caused by her interactions with Tony. I decided that I would talk with her on the upcoming Saturday. I put a note on the guest's bedroom door that said simply, "Talk Saturday after breakfast." Friday, 5th week. Breakfast was quiet as usual, and Anne came into my office and said goodbye to me as she left for work. Later that day I found a note from Anne on my bedroom door. "Jim, it is Friday and we used to make love on Friday nights. I miss it and I know that you have to be hurting. Whenever you get home this evening, you can come use me any way you want. No talking. No strings. Just raw sex. We don't have any STDs and my infection is gone. You don't have to sleep with me. Anne." The first admit that this was out of character for Anne, so she must be in a bad way. I laughed at the irony of her note. Was she throwing it in my face that she only permitted us to have sex on Fridays? I will have to see how I feel tonight. I arrived home about 8 p.m. Anne was sitting on her bed reading a book and was fully undressed. I stopped in the doorway and held up her note. "When I took you to your lover's condo, you accused me of throwing it in your face, and we had an angry exchange. So I have to ask you. Are you throwing the only Friday night sex in my face by offering me sex tonight?" I asked. "Oh shiz. That is not what I meant at all. I didn't think about that when I wrote the note. I just remembered that we used to make love on Friday nights and tonight is Friday. I screwed up again. Shit. Fuck. I can't seem to do anything right." Anne sat and started to cry. I walked into her room and I put my arms around her and let her cry against my chest. "I wanted to do something special for you. I know that you must be hurting because I am. I am so unhappy and tonight I am so horny. I am sorry. I just can't get anything right," Anne said. "Weeks ago you would have gone full witch on me for accusing you of throwing Friday night sex in my face, but tonight you are acting more like your old self," I said. "Honey, I am trying so hard," but she didn't finish her sentence and just cried. "Anne, pull yourself together. Go put in your diaphragm and meet me in our bed," I said. As I was undressing in my bedroom, I heard the shower in the master bathroom. She didn't take a very long shower but showed up at my bed naked and crawled in between the covers. I reached for her and pulled her to me. We made out for a long time. Then Anne ducked under the covers and I felt her start sucking my stick. Tonight is going to be a great night. I do not know what time we finally went to sleep holding each other, but it was in the early morning hours. Saturday, 5th week. Anne was up before me. I smelled bacon cooking so I got up and dressed. When I got to the kitchen, Anne was dishing up a big breakfast with eggs, bacon, potatoes, and waffles. Anne appeared to be happier than I had seen her in months. I heard her humming and she smiled at me a lot. We didn't talk much during breakfast, except Anne said, "Thank you for last night." Afterwards she picked up the dishes and then joined me at the table with her cup of coffee and a notepad. "You asked me in your letter to meet with you so that we could talk, so go ahead. Tell me what is on your mind," I said. Anne's discussion. "I know that I have beat the I am sorry to death, so there will be none of that. I know that some of this will be painful for both of us, but we need to talk about it, so that we can put it behind us and concentrate on getting back together. I have made some notes or points to make certain that I stay on topic, and that I don't forget anything. I need to tell you how it all started, not so much for you, but really for me. I need to tell someone so that I can get over this affair, besides I want you to know everything. This is really tough for me, so bear with me." Every day at work, Tony was very attentive to me, lots of compliments, followed by suggestions to go to lunch. I finally gave in and we ate lunch together almost every day for 2 weeks. I noticed that some of the supervisors and managers noticed us, so Tony suggested that we leave separately but meet in his car and go get some lunch. When I got to his car, he grabbed me and started making out with me. He was very good at it, and I have to admit that I enjoyed it. I have been feeling a bit old lately, so it was nice that someone younger than me wanted me. He tried to feel my tits inside of my bra, but I fended him off. While we were kissing, he took his stick out and then forced my head down by it. I thought about it for a second, and then I decided to give him a BJ, rather than allowing him to go any farther. After he came and I swallowed, he was finished with sex, so we went for a hamburger. After that lunch date, I thought a lot about what I had done. I felt very guilty, but in the back of my mind it reminded me of what I did in college. There was something exciting about it. As the days went by, I realized that I had gotten away with it. There were no consequences because you didn't know about it, and no one at work knew anything about it. So the next time we left for lunch, he took me to his condo. We made out for a while and he fingered me. I thought that since I had gotten away with the blowjob, I went ahead and had sex with him thinking that I could get away with doing it. He was a very good lover and he played me like a violin. The sex was very good and I had good orgasms. The sex was exciting because I knew that I shouldn't be doing it. I was euphoric afterward and I drove back to the office feeling like I was floating on a cloud. But back at the office I was reminded of what I had done because my panties were saturated with his semen. I realized that I had cheated on you, and I had just had unprotected sex with him. I was a nervous wreck until I had my next period. I could not imagine what you would do if I were pregnant. We couldn't meet every day because of his obligations with work, so it was random when we went to his condo. He wouldn't tell me until first thing the morning that he wanted to do it. I couldn't wear my diaphragm every day just in case he wanted to have me. I was also worried that you might check to see if my diaphragm was missing. The only choice was to buy some rubbers which you found in my purse. He gave me the key to his condo with the idea that maybe I could come over on weekends. I never intended to meet him on the weekends. On the days he wanted to meet, I would leave work about 10 to 15 minutes before him and drive to his place. Since I had a key, I could go right in and get ready for him. He would then join me and we would have sex. We only did it once each time because we had to go back to work. The last 2 times we did it, there was no euphoria afterwards, and it wasn't exciting. In fact, it was too repetitive. After those last 2 times, during the drive back to work, all I felt was regret, guilt and hate for myself. On the day I accidentally called you Tony, that morning I finally decided that I would not see him the upcoming Thursday afternoon. I just couldn't do it anymore. We both have read the stories on the internet about cheating wives, and I know that men want to know, was he bigger than me and was the sex better than with me? So I will tell you that he is not bigger than you. In fact, he is smaller than you, but he really knows how to use it. As for the sex, yes, it was quite good and I enjoyed it. I cannot compare it to what you and I do because it is different. Let me explain. Sex with him was good, and at first I was euphoric afterwards, but by the time I got back to work it was gone. Then for days afterward I would feel guilty and remorseful. It put a lot of stress on me. The last 2 times, there was no euphoria, just guilt and self-hate. When we make love it is different. I feel loved afterward and you always hold me. The next day I still feel the love we had and I am happy. There is no stress afterward. One other thing I must tell you. Tony would try to give me oral sex, but he wasn't good at it. He didn't know how to do it. Plus, he never did it long enough to give me an orgasm. I think in his mind it was just to get me wet before we had sex. When you give me oral sex, it is outstanding. You always give me 2 or more orgasms doing it. It was Tony's idea to limit you to have sex with me only on Fridays. That way I was fresh for him all week long, and we could do it any day that he could be free for lunch. Tony had something that kept him from meeting me on Fridays. That way you would not suspect anything, and you would not be getting sloppy seconds. Now I realize how hard that was on you, because until last night, I had gone many weeks without any loving. I was hurting bad. The affair was absolutely finished when I mistakenly called you Tony. That night I desperately wanted to tell you everything so that I could quit hiding the affair, but you were so angry. I became afraid of you, and for the first time, I was afraid that you might hurt me. I had never seen you so angry. As for me being a witch, it must have started when I started having lunches with Tony. At first I wanted to spend a lot of time with him, but I couldn't because I was here with you. That made me angry and I took it out on you. Later on, I was feeling guilty and I hated myself for what I was doing. Now I realize that I was angry at myself and not you, but I transferred the anger to you. I am sorry for the way that I treated you. With Tony out of our lives, especially mine, there is no reason for me to be witchy with you. I can get back to the old Anne that you love. I am confused about how you feel about me. Sometimes you were angry with me, but then you took me on that wonderful date, and I thought that maybe you had forgiven me, and we could get back to being man and wife. But then the witch in me pissed you off and you kicked me out of your bedroom. I don't know if we are getting back together or getting divorced. Regardless, I hope that you will consider my offer to continue to live with you as I said in my letter to you. I want to say to you that I regret everything that I did with Tony, even the lunches at work. I guess I agree with you that I was stupid. I am very sorry for the pain and hurt that I have caused you. I have felt the distrust that you have for me and I do not blame you. I can say that after all this, there is no way I would ever look at another man whether we are together or not. I want you to know that I love you dearly and I will do anything to get us back together again. There I have said what I wanted to tell you, and it feels good to get it off my chest. Thank you for being willing to let me talk with you. You have been very kind not to interrupt or yell at me. And, I have one question. How do I know that this won't happen again when the next handsome young guy starts giving you compliments? I asked. This whole ordeal has scared the crap out of me. I never want to go through this again. I made a promise to myself to never duck another man but you. Even if you divorce me, I will not have sex with another man. I would rather be single the rest of my life, Anne replied. Jim's discussion. Anne, I am not certain that I needed to hear some of the details, but I can see that you needed to get it all out of your system. Now we share all that information. I don't want us to discuss any of it again, and I never want to hear the name Tony again. That Monday night that you called me Tony, I became angrier than I ever have been in my life. I was angry with you because you were cheating on me. That was something that I thought would never happen to us, but it did. I was very angry at Tony because I blamed him for the affair, and I wanted to hurt him. However, I was most angry with myself. It has upset me that I had no knowledge of your affair. I make my living dealing with intelligence issues. I am supposedly an expert on intelligence, and here my wife is ducking another man, and I knew nothing about it. When I saw that you had moved some of your things into his condo, I saw that my marriage was over, and I wanted to hurt you both, but I calmed down, I explained. Oh my God. I had no idea, Anne said. The past 4 or 5 months you have been very difficult to live with. You were angry with me a lot, and you raised your voice to me a lot, both of which are not in your personality. You were so selfish that you could not see that your words were hurting me. I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. I knew that there was something wrong within your life, and you were showing your unhappiness by taking it out on me. All I could think of was there was something wrong with you medically or mentally. An affair never crossed my mind. I had contacted our family doctor about 2 months ago and talked with him. He looked at your physical form from last year and said there was nothing wrong with you physically. He said that he couldn't comment on you mentally though. Since there was a change in your personality, I began to wonder if you had some mental issues, and I didn't know how to address it with you without you going nuclear on me. So, Anne, you being a witch is going to stop. I will not put up with it anymore. So before you say something witchy to me, just stop and think about what hotel you want to be living in the next day. If it keeps up, I will divorce you. Anne, I am still very active sexually, and I need to have sex fairly often. Over the years, we have cut back somewhat mostly due to your workload and you being tired, but recently you had cut back to only Friday nights. I couldn't understand how you were living with sex only once a week, but now I know that you were getting it somewhere else and I wasn't. The night that you called me Tony, you had turned me down for sex with your usual tired excuse, but when we got into it, you were really enjoying yourself. In fact, when I stopped, you were actually begging me to finish. It just proves that sex with me is pretty good, and I would bet that it is better than what you were getting from Tony. And, if we are to consider getting back together, then there are things we must talk about. You have hurt me and there will be consequences for you. I will be sleeping in the master bedroom and you will be sleeping in the guest bedroom until I say otherwise. I have sexual needs that you have not been taking care of. Going forward, I insist that we have sex at least every other day, and no more of this Friday nights only crap, and none of that I am too tired from work. This is non-negotiable. You will do it or we will divorce. In order to build back the trust I have lost in you, I will need to know where you are and what you are doing every minute of every day. You will call me every day when you get to work. You will call me every day when you leave work and will inform me of any stops on the way home. I will ask you not to have lunch with any men unless there is another woman with you. You will unlock your phone and let me see it once a week, and do not erase your phone calls or texts until I have reviewed them. If you do not want to do any of these things, then a divorce is the only answer. I am tired of living the way we have been. I do not have to live like that. Do you understand? I asked. Yes, I do. I should have been doing all these things all the years that we have been married. You can even put a tracer on my car to know where I am if you want. I agree with all of it. As for the sex, I already told you in my letter that you can have me anytime, anywhere, Anne said. Yes, you have offered your body to me, but I don't want a wife who lays there with her legs apart. I want an active partner. So you now know what you have to do, I explained. We both got up from the table and hugged each other. I think both of us had tears in our eyes. Honey, look at me. I see something in your eyes. I think your swimmer level is too high because your eyes are turning white. Maybe we should start with you using my body to take care of your needs, Anne said, giggling. We went to our bedroom and replayed last night. Epilogue. According to his neighbors, Tony left in a rented U-Haul truck within the week after he returned home from the hospital. The neighbors said that Tony had a noticeable limp and had to use a cane as he loaded the truck. I am not certain where he went and I do not care. His wife must have divorced him because she is shown as no relationship on her Facebook page. As you can tell, Anne and I made up. After a week more of our separation, I let her move back into my bedroom. She is almost back to the same person that I married years ago. She no longer is a witch, in fact, she is happy and smiling all the time. Once or twice she has gotten a little upset about something, but not to the level it had been. When it happens, I take her to the bedroom and well you know. We are now making love 4 to 5 times a week. I kept the 7 condoms hanging on the wall above our bed for several months, just as a reminder to Anne. The day they disappeared, my wife said to me, "I don't know where these came from, but I am tired of looking at them." Lol. It seems that every day now is a perfect day. And that's a wrap for this 2-part story. Trust is a fragile thing, and these stories remind us of the importance of nurturing it. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, so you never miss a shocking revelation.